What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Shiv, and today I want to talk to you guys about the Lexington. More specifically, which rocket planes to use. Now, I'm not going to try to force my opinion or how I like to play down your throat. I'm just here to give you a balanced perspective view of the different weapon systems. Now, when it comes to games like World of Warships, options for a weapon system can be very, very polarizing, all right? If you ask some people who like playing the Growbreaker first, which guns do you prefer? Do you want the 406s or do you want the 420s? Me personally, I like the 420s. Yes, longer reload time, but that extra little penetration really does help. Just saying. But when it comes to the rockets on the Lexington as well as the Midway, it's a little bit of a different story, and one that I kind of had to discover. So initially when I got the Lexington, I went and I got all the planes as quickly as I possibly could, as well as get the whole B. Thank God for FXP. And I know some of you are sitting there going, no, I get it. I do, but I had it to spend. Why not? I don't really have too much desire to get the Azuma at this time, but I will later. It's fine. But I went and I got it all. With the exception of the 127s. I went with the Tiny Tims, figuring, all I need is a Tiny Tim. We're good. And the first couple of games I played, I discovered something about the Tiny Tims. To my horror, I couldn't hit with any consistency more than 2 out of 6 rockets on a DD. Now, I know what some of you are saying is like, yeah, well, that's still like 3,400 damage, plus most likely a fire and all the component stuff. Yeah, sure. But I said at most. Normally, it was just 1 rocket, and that comes out to only like 1,700 and some odd damage. That's if the DD hadn't taken damage to the area that I impacted with the rocket. If that area had been saturated, it only comes out to 800, which is kind of a bummer. Not gonna lie, it's extremely disheartening and just not fun at that point, And it makes you really wonder, it's like, well, why am I chasing these DDs with a weapon system that's completely ineffective? It's kind of like a battleship trying to shoot a DD at range with HE shells. And when I mean range, I mean like anything over 13, 14 kilometers. Yeah, you could do it. You hit 1 or 2 shells at most, but not very much. Most of the time you might get 1. All right, so it kind of came to that point, it just was not worth the effort. But I kept trying. And the reason why I kept trying is because the first aircraft carrier I played for the rework was the UK. And the UK had some pretty decent anti-DD rocket planes. Their slower speed made aiming it a little bit easier. Even if they tried to juke, I was able to counter it quite nicely. And I was able to put most of the rockets on target pretty consistently. So going to the Lexington and not having that option available kind of really made me have to reevaluate how I was going to play this ship. Now, I have tested both sets, and we're going to have some highlights between the two and kind of show you what one set did and what other set did, and then come to a conclusion at the end. So I hope you guys enjoy.
Approaching target. We're under attack. Engaging enemy. We're under attack. Fighter airborne. Approaching target. We're under attack. Take Get back. We're under attack. Engaging enemy. Taking fire. Enemy destroyer.
right, so that was the HVAR 127 millimeters, and now let's go look at some tiny tins.
Taking fire. Engaging enemy. Taking fire. We're under attack. Engaging enemy. We're under attack. Approaching target. Approaching target. We're under attack. We're under attack. Provide anti-aircraft fire support. We're under attack. Engaging enemy. Taking fire. Returning. Taking fire. Taking fire. Approaching target. Taking fire. All stations, concentrate fire on the target. Approaching target. Returning. Taking. All stations, requesting fire on the designated target. Engaging enemy. Taking fire. Concentrate fire on the designated target. Engaging enemy. We're under attack.
Alrighty then, so we're going to look at some after action reports and kind of come to our conclusions. First, we're going to look at the HVARs. Now, we were only able to get 64,000. We spent a lot of time hunting things that had low hit points, but it was crucial that we took them out, mostly because I hate being flanked by a surprise DD that kicks my ass. Nothing more annoying than that. We were able to be top of the board with 1553, not overly spectacular. But when we get to the detailed report here, you see that we killed 2 DDs. I'm not going to lie, we finished this one off with a dive bomb. And we only hit it 4 times, which, you know, with the rockets isn't too bad. When you look at the total amount of rockets we fired, 192, that's actually 8 salvos. All right, 24 times 8 equals 192. And then, of course, we hit with 57. That's not very good when you really think about it. It's a little bit more than 25%. Not by much. Really, it's like 26 maybe. That's not very good accuracy. But remember, our focus there was DDs, and for that purpose, it actually worked relatively good. Now, if we were using this more on, say, battleships and using it more on cruisers, like this Lag Last Near, we would have probably had a much healthier return. Like we only used bombs there, we only used bombs here, but we could have probably increased this number quite significantly. Unfortunately, the whole plane economy thing does kind of factor in there quite significantly. So yeah, we mostly just used it against the destroyers, which the HVARs are okay for that. They're really okay for that. In all honesty, because it's 24, it's actually probably the best system at tier 8 for dealing with destroyers, hands down. Now, looking at the Tiny Tims, it's kind of a similar story, but not exactly. So with the Tiny Tims, we were unable to really get any damage on DDs. There was one DD in play. We hit it twice with rockets. Only one of them technically caused damage of 891. So a little disappointing. All right, first of all, battle damage 104. All right, spoiler alert, since I didn't put the whole battle in here. It was a neck and neck battle the entire way. We won at the wire by about 30 points. Okay, even though we only had one cap left, the enemy just wasted too much time trying to stop us, and we were preventing them from capturing quite significantly. I also pulled off some pretty hellacious endgame stuff with dive bombers and torp runs and all that, and was able to clear a lot of stuff out. All right, so looking at the team score here, we were at the top with 2,300, so already we're looking at a much better game. Again, somewhat subjective considering time played and how active we were. But let's look at the detailed reports because we're kind of wanting to focus on these rockets. And instantly we can see here that we were able to hit 33 rockets for 31,000 damage. Now, why is that important? Well, considering the rockets do about 17,000 plus per hit, and we hit 1,000 on average, actually a little under 1,000 average, isn't overly that good, but something you have to factor in. We were able to start a bunch of fires because of the rockets. All right, seriously, 33% chance is no joke. So yeah, we were able to start fires, and you can figure about 6,000 of that would actually be on there as well. So that's actually getting closer to about 38,000. All right. That's actually not that bad when you really consider it. That's well over 1,000 per rocket. It's quite nice, actually. And when you look at how many, like the percentage or our accuracy here is, we were hitting with like 62% of our rockets in comparison to 25. All right, so now for the conclusion. While the HVAR 127s are really good at interdicting against DDs and generally have a higher damage output against them, I found them a little bit lacking against everything else. While yes, they were still able to get nice chunks of 5k damage against aircraft carriers and cruisers, they just really did not have the staying power. And that's partially because of the very interesting discrepancy between the Tiny Tim planes and the HVAR planes. As you notice here, the HVAR has 1,300 base. This is also without Survival Expert, so we don't get that lovely 120 on top of it. But when you look at the Tiny Tim, it gets 1360. Now, I know some of you might be going, oh, it's just 60, man. What difference is that? Well, when you compare that there's 9 planes in a flight, that's actually 540 life that you're losing by taking the HVAR. So you kind of have to play it a little bit differently. You also notice that the speeds do not change at all, you know? Yeah, you have less life, but you also have the same exact speed. So it's one of those things that's kind of a head scratcher. I don't know. Maybe it's an oversight. Maybe it'll be fixed later on. Or maybe not. It is what it is. So, to surmise, the HVARs do really good against DDs and are adequate with, the 33 millimeter per penetration against a lot of other ships. However, as you get into facing off against more tier 9s and tier 10s, the Tiny Tims actually have a greater payoff. The flip side of this is your ability to interdict against destroyers is lessened dramatically. While yes, you will still be able to get 2 to 3 hits if you're lucky with your Tiny Tims, it's most likely not going to pay out nearly as well as you would like. The flip side here is you're going to be able to do 7, 8, or more thousand damage to pretty much anything you're going to get a full strike on with your Tiny Tims. Now, we always use these numbers as in a full strike. When I say full strike, I mean first initial strike, not the second or third. Because in all honesty, as a CV, anything beyond that first strike is suspect to not happening. All right, so keep that in mind. Potentially, though, the HVAR has a higher per munition damage output than the Tiny Tim. All right, it honestly does. But the size of the target you're shooting at will greatly determine those values. So while, yes, we were able to get 5K on DDs with the HVAR, we were getting a lot less of a return on bigger ships with the exception of a aircraft carrier. But if we were to take these against, say, a battleship, we'd probably only get like 3K hitting with 20 rockets, all right? Because many of them would shatter on things like, the turrets and the armor belt and things of that nature. So you have to keep that in mind. It is also important to point out one other little detail. When you see a lot of the videos involving Tiny Tims going up against destroyers, you'll notice that the damage outputs seem a little bit higher than what we're talking about here. Well, you guys got to remember something. When it comes to the midway, you're getting at least one more rocket per plane. This is a 33% munition increase, thus potential damage is increased by 33% or more, depending. So where we were hitting 2 to 3, now you're looking at hitting 3 to 4. 3 to 4 is pretty significant when you look at 1700 damage potential per shot, okay? That's actually pretty big. At that point, you're talking about well over 6,000 a salvo. And at tier 10, 6,000 a salvo, it's actually a lot closer to 7,000. But 6,000 a salvo is really nasty. Absolutely nasty, ladies and gentlemen. So, yeah, that's pretty much our conclusion. If you want to be more anti-DD and kind of guide the flow of battle and protect the objectives, then the HVARs are 100% going to be the weapon systems for you. If you want to have a greater impact against the rest of the fleet and leave the DD interdiction to the cruisers and other DDs, good luck. Then yeah, the Tiny Tims are definitely going to be the weapon choice for you. The fact of the matter is they last longer than the HVARs due to the 60 more health is really going to factor in. So that's going to be all for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I spent a lot of time editing and doing all the nice little wipes there. If you like these videos, please like, subscribe, leave comments down below. Let me know what you think. Do you think the HVAR or the Tiny Tim are on equal par or one's better? I'd really like to know. From my personal experience, I found them equal but in different ways. Till next time, this is Shiv saying, stay safe, have fun, may our Jesus bless you. I'm out.